When something like HIV comes, it's like, well, I, I, I was given advice on how to treat bullies. I played football. I was taught how to tackle. I know how to protect myself. I know how to deal with all these things that show strength, that show that how tough I am, how much of a man I can be, but not for this. I went from college freshman All-American to dead man walking. I think there are multiple reasons why more straight men living with HIV are not involved in or won't sit in front of a camera or in front of a room and talk about their HIV status. Partly, I think in the early years, a lot of straight black men weren't welcome. They were seen as maybe part of the problem as opposed to part of the solution. In the mid-90s, black women were among the fastest growing population of people being diagnosed. Why? Largely because of black men. And there was a lot of black men, I know a lot of black men who are living with HIV, some are, professionals, some are not. But neither would take the chance of publicly saying anything that would diminish what might be a fragile existence in the first place. Keeping that job, staying in a relationship, all those things come into play. And when you add HIV to that, I become the enemy. So this is 1986. I was in college and playing football, and I was, the stereotypical All-American football player. We would donate blood at the blood bank, the Red Cross in the neighborhood. The nurse that prepped us and took us into the room where we sit down and get strapped in, put her hand out, said, "No, you can't go in. The doctor needs to talk to you first." The doctor emerges from this door to the left. He says, "Mr. Bryant, come on back. Let's talk to you." And he basically says, "So do you know why we called you back here?" I'm like, "One," and he repeated it, "you can't come back here. You cannot come back here. You can't donate at any blood bank. You will get in a lot of trouble if you do." And the other thing he wanted me to know was I had about 9 years to live, based on the amount of antibodies in my blood that I had 9 years lived. That's how I found out. I couldn't tell anyone, so I didn't. And I essentially deteriorated from that point. I played one more season. My grades got so bad, I had to just drop out of school. And I ended up, bouncing from, home to home once I couldn't stay in the dorms anymore. Mentally, psychologically, emotionally, I was crumbling, and I didn't realize how much until I attempted suicide, 1989, and I took a bunch of pills, drank a lot of liquor. I woke up in the hospital with charcoal coming out of my mouth. I guess this is what they give you when you ingest harmful things. When they did let me out a week later, I literally ran to where the apartment I was staying in with a friend. And I grabbed my stuff and I made a plan. I need to get out of here. I can't die like this. Thinking about how my mother, how my family would get the news. Not just of, "Oh, your son is HIV positive, and he died of suicide." That's how she would find out. I didn't want that. How was I going to tell my mom, "Okay, I'm coming home"? I remember calling her, I want to come home. And I showed up, and she didn't ask any questions. She was like, "Okay, he's here anyway. I don't know what's going on, but at least he's here." So I did everything from thought about joining the military, something I never wanted to do. But then they started HIV tests as a part of physical. And as soon as they stuck that needle in my arm, I remember sitting there thinking, like, all of this is about to fall apart. And then a couple of days later, The recruiter that found me, he had been joyous before because, I mean, there's a commission involved. He almost angrily gave me a letter that said, you probably already know this, but you're not going to be able to go." I have that letter to this day. And when I went from his door to my mom's front door, everything just completely broke down. I basically, I gave her the letter that the recruiter gave to me. She read it. And while she was reading it, I explained to her that this is the letter, but I have a story to tell you, basically. And I did it. Everything, I basically just regurgitated everything that had happened the last, previous 4.5 years or so. And it was the first time I had said anything about it, anything at all to anyone. And it felt like I was being, like I was a washcloth, just being wrung out at the end of that. I was crying. I felt like delirious, like I felt like out of my head. It felt surreal the entire moment. That's kind of when I was, I don't know, reborn. I felt like now I've said it, and it was like, okay, now what? Magic Johnson was diagnosed in 1991, publicly told everyone in 1991. That was my 5th year, and I had to say something. I couldn't run anymore. There was no place to hide. I was back home from school. And even it took a while after talking to my mom, after disclosing to my family, how was I going to, who was I going to be after this to them? I was less worried about the fact that a doctor a few years ago told me I had 9 years to live, but I was worried about how people would see me. Would they think I was gay? Would they think I was using drugs, needles, whatever came? And over the years, I've met young people, other, people my age who have, men my age who were just terrified of showing that vulnerability, of allowing that weakness to even be visible. Black women, many killed just because of disclosing to a boyfriend or even a husband. So it's fear. But it wasn't until like 2002 when I moved to Houston, and I realized, okay, I'm still alive, and I had been teaching to that point. I was a preschool teacher in Charlotte, and told the school administrator my status, told no one else. And there was one boy whose parents brought him in that wanted me specifically to be in his life. Having not only a someone living with HIV as his teacher, but a black male. It was later told to me that the boy was born with HIV. We confided in each other with our shared secrets. And that's really where I first started talking to people outside of my family. I could talk about AIDS walk. I could talk about medications and healthcare, even though I wasn't doing any of that myself. I was called the unicorn by Dina Gray. I'll never forget her taking me to a community meeting one night in Texas and just talking with a bunch of other people about living with HIV and the needs and the challenges that come with that. And it was a safe space, and it was the first time I talked publicly to anyone about me and about HIV. I made up my mind that whatever I was going to do, however I was going to wrap this up, I wanted to be going forward. I wanted to be doing something. I didn't want to just sit and wait because I had already been doing that, and that alone would have killed me. And from that point on, I couldn't stay away. I started volunteering everywhere Black AIDS Institute is, the National Association of People with AIDS, National Minorities Aid Council. I started looking up these places and figured I have to learn. I have to join what's happening because there are a lot of people dying and I have no idea why. And of course, once I learned all of the things that have been preventing positive health outcomes for so many people, especially people in where I come from, I wanted to be involved in whatever skills or whatever ability I had to contribute. I wanted to do that.